so we're going to get into personalization. So I'm a walker. You guys probably have seen that before. And this is going to be a health hazard for me. OK, so an epicenter. An epicenter, we talk about epicenters as just like earthquakes, right? You're familiar with the word epicenter? Like the epicenter of the earthquake was over Nepal, like that kind of stuff. It comes from the word epi, which means above the center. So Nepal is on the very top of where that earthquake actually happened in the core. All right, so we have design changes, technology, expectations, culture. These are all of the rumblings in the industry that boil up, and then you see them as they come on into your inbox, and they make their way from your inbox into really good emails. So we kind of like to refer really good emails as like the shaky epicenter of the email industry. So one of those things, where did my clicker go? Right here. Is that everyone talks about personalization. So this is one of the big shakes that Chad talked about happening for 20 years. It's like this overarching thing that everyone's like, we're going to do it this year. And 90%, so the survey that we sent out that Chad talked about yesterday, part of that mentioned, are you focusing on personalization for your team in the next year? 90% said, yeah, we are working on this. We're going to get it done. So we see that. Like all these really cool emails are coming into your inbox. We got some from Strava, Airbnb. It's really, really smart companies. They're using data to do that. And there's a lot of people out there who are giving talks about it. There are about 552,000 results that Google gave me for personalization email talks or webinars or something like that. So there's a lot of shit out there. And so you're thinking, this is sweet. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's doing it. But 69% of you say that you can't personalize because the data is too difficult to access. So 90% of you want to do it, but almost 70% say they won't be able to do it because they don't know how to do it. So that so we're like, OK, we look at emails. You guys look at us to walk the walk, talk the talk. And we've been on webinars talking about how important personalization is. And we use all these really good emails from other people saying, yeah, they did that right. We just saw some by Strava and Airbnb, right? And then we're like, well, if we're going to talk about it, we got to do it. So what we did is a good old first name personalization, right? So if you may have seen this. So what we did is we took your first name, and then we matched it with a random rap name, and we gave it to you. So Quentin there, or Ryan is Ray Z, Sandra Small Z, UC Jammer, Vice Cube, all those good things. Super cool personalization, right? And we washed our hands clean, and we sat down, and we said, there we go, kids. We just did personalization. Yeah. That's not personalization. That is like super easy shit right there. You can do that in your sleep. That's someone's name, and then all I did is create a separate column and just made up another name. And then I matched them, and I sent that through a Nifty Images, which combined the two. And then you got it, and you're like, oh, this is so special to me. But we know that's super easy. And that's not, you might be delighted when you see that. Some of you shared it. But to us, that really is more on the identity of who you are, but it's not really personalizing to who you are, if you're following me so far. So we thought, OK, that's cool, but we have to eat our own dog food. We got to learn what you're doing in your environment as you interact with really good emails, and we will build something that's personalized to you. So if you think about a person is their identity. So who their parents are, what their name is, where they came from, how dad bod-ish they have. That's who they are. Where they're from, their city, their geolocation, maybe some other things about them. But then you talk about behavior. So did they get a haircut? Did they get a sweet face and neck tattoo? What are they buying? What intrigues them? What categories are they searching for? What are they reading? These are the things that are important to them. And so there's identity and behavior, right? Those are two things that kind of build up as you're looking at personalization. Behavior to us is good, but when you start looking at how you want to define these for your teams and your developers, they're like, we don't use the word behavior, we use the word events. So these are things that they're doing in the world, creating events for themselves. They could be micro events going from one page to another. They could be even smaller than that, just scrolling from the top to the bottom of the page. They could be highlighting text. Anything that's done in an action would be considered an event. So then we want to connect all these events together. We want to, it's called event streaming. So we know from when you started something to when you ended something, and we can logically and linearly put this together. So, Mike came to the site, he logged in, he looked at that sweet, awesome swimsuit with the short shorts, and he added to his cart, and then his wife told him, no, that's too short, so then he abandoned, right? So we can string all those actions together, minus the wife telling me that part, right? Because you don't know that. But you know everything else. And so we thought, OK, we just built this cool site. Took us 5 years to do it. We lost a lot of our hair and gained a lot of weight. And we asked ourselves all the time, why are we doing this? But we got a really cool crew to help build it for us. Nicer, they were here last year. They're not here today. But so it's built in React. That probably doesn't matter to you. But yours might be built in WordPress, on Drupal, on Shopify, whatever. And what we then did is, cool, it's built. Everyone's going to come, and they're going to tell us all the things. And we're going to collect it. And we're going to be like Kevin Costner. And we're going to sit there, and the ghosts are going to whisper in our ears. Right? That was a good dream. It was a good field of dreams, if you will. And thank you. And you did come, but we did not really understand what was going on because we're dumb and we didn't set up those ways of tracking all those events. So you guys were making the events, and we had Google Analytics set up, and we said, oh, look at this email, it's really popular, or look at this category, it's really popular. From a general audience view, we knew what was going on the site, and we knew how to tailor some things based on where people were falling off from a very broad perspective. But we didn't have those event triggers set up. So we thought, OK, the internet's really cheap now. We built the site fairly cheap, although it's a lot of money still. And there's a lot of really cool technology out there that will allow me to, sorry, I'm probably blocking the view for some of these people. There's some cool technology out there that allow us to tap into Google Analytics or on-site events and pass that through to a CDP or a customer data platform for us to match one-to-one relationships and behaviors and events to identities, right? So you have your identities and your behaviors, and we want to connect the two. So we went out and we said, who's got all the data? And we want to track everything. Just give me everything that's going on the site, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in some JavaScript on the site. So I don't know if you guys know Segment.io, but Segment.io is a big person who does this, or not person, a company who does this. And there are other cool companies out there that will capture those events for you. And really all it is JavaScript. And then when an event happens, your developers will do like an event tag. And like on click, it will fire that event back to Segment. And then Segment is tying that event back to the profile. So if you're logged in, it's capturing all that data for that individual at the same time. So it's tracking, it's streaming all those events together. But that's a really bad way of doing things because you just have a data dump. And you don't really know what you're looking for. So we stepped back and we thought, OK, what are the behaviors that we want on the site? So similarly to you, when you're thinking about, do you want people, are you a media company? Do you want people to actually read more articles? Are you an e-commerce company? Do you want people to buy things from your site? You want to know what's a logical path for that to happen, and what do you not want them to do, and what do you want to watch out for? So we went through and we mapped, so it's probably kind of small for people in the back. I'll get to some bigger ones in a second. But we went through and we mapped 13 events that we thought were important to really good emails. You could take this and you could go do the same thing to your own product and just map out where people are falling off, where they're adding things to their cart, where they're abandoning things, what coupon codes are they adding in, what categories are they searching for. So for us, a big one is they search or filter for an email. So we have an event that triggers to Segment's SDK that says when they hit return, we want to capture that and attach that information to the profile. And every time they do something, like click to attempt to like an email, so they click to collect it right here. That's an attempt, but if they're not logged in, they can't collect it, so they might shoot them to somewhere else. So they have a logged in state that's also being tracked in this whole thing. That's a really light pointer. So that's all those things that we tracked. Only 13. Your company might say, we need a lot more. Give me 70. And you'll be like, whoa, I can get to 70 in like 3 years. But why do you want to track all those things? There's probably just a normal flow that you want to optimize today. Go implement those. Watch what's happening. So for us, this is kind of the geeky, nerdy stuff that we got into. We talked about attempting to click right here. So each time a user clicks to collect on a specific email, regardless of whether they are logged in or logged out, and regardless of whether the like resolves, and we have this email object or that event, which is logged in as a Boolean, and the attempt is collected as well. And then we just wait, because you're not going to see results or data come in the next day unless you're a super huge site that gets millions of users. So we watched for about 3 months. We didn't do anything with this event information. We just said, where are the events happening? What can we view from this? So what we found was that 98%, so if you look at that circle that we just showed, one of the things is we want to get people to find new emails, right? So search is a really big thing for us. So when they search, what are they finding? 99.9% of the time, there is a result for their search, unless you're inserting something like, I love coronavirus or something like that, right? You're not gonna get a result for that. But there's usually a result. And then what we found was that 75% of people that get to a result page go into a detail page. So they click on one of the emails, and they see the more details of that email. And so we're like, that's great, but that means 25% of the people that search are never getting into a detail. And maybe they just don't care. Maybe that's just how they want to browse the site. They just want to get inspiration with a lot of emails all at once, kind of capture what's going on. Maybe they're right-clicking, saving it to their own file. They don't need to go into the details. And so what we said is like, that's great, but let's look at logged in users and see what they do. And so we set out a test. And so we grabbed their profile ID, and we got them into the site and said, most likely if they have a profile ID, they have a profile image. Maybe they don't, so we've created some fake images for them, but they still have a profile. And we'll send them an email. And we'll say, hey, when you come to the site, we're going to watch what we didn't say, hey, we're going to watch what you do, because that's creepy. But we will watch the data when we sent people in and just watch what logged in users do. That's kind of our control, right? So our lift is from this influence right here. And then we just sat and watched again. What are they working on? What do they think is important? And so we found that retention, so people that were logged in, if they viewed a detailed view of an email from that browse to or search to detail, that we retain them at 9x. So almost 10 times of the people that are logged in that are or not logged in that come to the site, if they view an email, they'll come back. In your own examples, if people are reading cool articles that are categorized as X, or that have a product that is selling fast, and those are ways to look at what's keeping people coming back. You want to set up those events to make sure that you're tracking that correctly. So that was like, sweet. So if we can get people into a detail view, we're going to make them much more sticky, which is good for us, because then we can learn a lot more about who they are, grow the community, have people come to this conference, stuff like that, right? And then we said, let's look at this one. Let's look at some other things, other features that we built out during the year and see if people like them and what they do. And we found if you look at the code view, which is in the top right corner of a detail view, it's a little small button that says view code, that we retain 3 times more those users than just getting into a detail view. These are like the geekiest people, but this is our community. This is the people we want to talk to, right? These are the people we want to grow. These are the people that get us. So we get from every country in the world, we get visitors, right? And the average on-time site is about 5 to 7 minutes is how long they stay. These people stay hella long. Like usually like 47 minutes on average, right? The people that get to this level. They are great word of mouth people. These are the people that are giving us hopefully 10 out of 10 NPS scores, right? This is our core community. And when you're looking at events, don't look at events for just your average user. Look at events for people that resonate with what they're doing, that have good high lifetime value, and that are buying a lot of shit or reading a lot of stuff, right? So what we did is we said, okay, so from a detail view to, from a browse view to a detail view to a code view, you increase by 9, and then you increase again by 3. That's a pretty big factor. So we thought, how can we convert these people into these people? That to us was our hypothesis. And so our objectives, we set up objectives. This is also like the operations side of how we do things. It's not like the coolest design or like, look at this blob kind of thing, but it's, it keeps the site up and running. And so we would trigger events with email viewed, and then we had all these other things that said, do not trigger if the email view was not during this campaign, or if they did not trigger in the last 20 minutes, because we know it takes about, from the time you get to the site to a detail view, it might take you about 20 minutes on average. So we don't want to send an email or a trigger that would trigger an email if they were under that 20 minutes, because then they might still be on the site, and then they get an email like, well, I'm still in my process of finding that code. So those are some restraints we put on it. And then we wanted the content of the email to be very applicable to what they had seen. So we went out and we're like, sweet, we're going to build this in our ESP. And our ESP didn't do that, because our ESP doesn't talk to segment. So there's a difference that we learned, which is a batch and stream data. And a lot of like Constant Contact, MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, which we use, don't allow you to set up those data streams in a way that will trigger those emails transactionally, because they're much more built for this campaign, broad stroke kind of email sends, right? And they do really well on that identity personalization, who you are, what you've done, when your birthday is. Has anyone gotten a birthday email from us in here? A few people. So we know your birthday, right? But there were no tracking on that. It was just like this plain text email. And so those are things that we can do within that system, but we can't do this behavioral things. So we went out to the market and we said, okay, who does this? And Chris Hexton from Vero, I don't know if any of you heard about Vero before. They're based out of Australia. He was actually supposed to give this presentation, and then he couldn't come because of the things going on in the world. But he and I have been working on this for a while. And so we went in and we got all set up. We got Segment connected into Vero. All the kind of big new players in the ESP space do allow for this. So, if you're working for like with a Braze or an Iterable or something like that, they will support data streaming. Zach, I don't know if Zach's here today, but he can tell you more about that. He and I jammed on this for about like an hour or 2 hours about 4 months ago. So we set up all of our rules, and then we went and built our email. And so what we're using here is we've got this event company. So in the last example, that would be Apple. And then we want to capitalize the first letter. We have a little copy that we think is interesting. So we say, like, impress your boss, show them how you modified code for that Apple email you looked at. So they got to the detail view of the Apple, but they never got to the code view, because we saw that in events. We saw that stream, but the stream ended before they got to the code view, right? So then we also did a personalized image here, which takes the event URL of that code, of the code view, and then the image that they were looking on the detail view. And when it renders, it looks like this. So you have the Apple email here, and then this is from the detail view, and then this is the code from the code view, right? If you got that, and you're like, whoa, these guys get me. Like, I was on that site, and that was cool. And so we're like, OK, we'll launch this, and we'll see what happens. And then we'll share it with everyone at the conference. So we did. This is what happened. So far, we launched this just a couple months ago. So these are like our core users. So 4,674. This means they have given us their email address, meaning they're logged in, or else we couldn't send this. Delivered with 99%. Open 51%. So if you went to your boss and said, hey, it would be awesome it would be cool if I got our open rates to 51% on our core users to come back to our site. If your boss says no, you should leave. You should go find another job. All right? People that click through, about 10%, so which is good, not amazing. But we actually set a conversion event, meaning they came back to the site and maybe they didn't get to they didn't get back to that code view, but eventually they did. So this email influenced that decision to get back to the code view at some point with a 12% conversion rate. Again, you went back to your boss and said, hey, I can lift conversion rates to 12%. Would you want to do that? And he says no. You leave. OK? And 35 unsubscribed. So we pissed some people off. They're like, I don't like this behavioral stuff. Get away from me. So we went through this process to learn how hard it was for other companies. We started this process OK, so also, let me go back. There's also this, so right here, right person, right time, right volume, right message. This is what we're trying to solve for with behavioral messaging. It's very different than personalized messaging, right? You might get the right person point of view, but with the other things, you're not going to get your birthday at the right time. Maybe birthday's going to work for right time because it's their day, but how often are you going to email them? We know that we've set up triggers to figure out how long we should send these emails to them. We're not going to send you didn't get a code view today and you visited yesterday, so we're going to send it to you tomorrow and do that every single day. We say send it once and see what happens. That's it. Right? So we're just doing the right volume, and we've got this cadence of when to send that, and then the right message is tailored to what their event stream told us up to that spot. Right? So I don't know if you guys, if you were here last year, Egan flew in from Australia, and he's this kind of guy. Like if you've met Will, you know that he is the biggest behavioral data nerd in the world. And what's cool is that Will, I was looking at his LinkedIn profile. He started as a receptionist for his company, and now he is in I want to say he's like a chief growth officer for that same company. And what he did is he just took all the data that he learned and went through and started applying it to what the company was doing, and learned a lot of stuff doing it. So he was here last year, and he said, hey, I want to do this with you all and help you along this process. And we're like, sweet, we'll take that. Free labor, yes. And so we've been talking with him for a while, but and he's not free, by the way, but he's awesome. He's awesome, and he really helped us to learn about this system and what it does. And when we had issues, we had somebody to lean on. But there's if you go out to Segment or you go out to Iterable or Braze or something like that, they can help you build these things as well. But we started in about October, and it took us 2.5 months to get to a point where we felt that the data had cleaned itself out, that we could see some good behaviors from it. We could track trends off of it. And then it took us about another 1.5 months to build the emails, just because we were tweaking things here and there. We were testing logged in state. We were testing what happens if we hit people to profiles. That profile thing was like a mass send. We didn't even need to use this for it. So today, so that's about 8 months from when we started to implementing behavioral data into our emails. And this is just one campaign. It's not really a huge deal, but it is to our core audience. So just to give you an idea of what you're going to get yourself into, it's not a small thing, but once you get it up and running, it's not hard. The biggest part is just the waiting and just seeing what people do and what your conversions you want throughout your site. So how am I doing on time? I'm a little ahead, but that's where we are going to end for personalization. Do you have any questions? Yes?
Where do you draw the line? I think there's a lot of topics right now and opinions about privacy protection versus personalization. I think we've evolved from saying, like, be cool, don't be creepy, and then it's personalization, and then it's how to balance that with privacy. So what is your opinion on where you draw that line and how much information you need to personalize that's, like, required?
All right, so the question was, where do you draw the line for behavioral and personalization? So it's legally and still cool, right? That's that guy. So the way that we do it, and I work for a much bigger entity with over 1,000 employees, again, because this is not my full-time gig. What? Because I work on it like more than 40 hours a week. What? Is we do privacy is very important. You can always opt out with cookies. We have, right when you get on the site, if it's your first time using it, we say we are going to follow you with cookies. Do you want to opt in or opt out? If you opt out, segment JavaScript does not fire, right? So there are some people there are core users that we are just not getting in front of with email. Hopefully by what we're learning by everyone else that's logged in and giving us that data, that we can tailor maybe a better flow for the individuals that don't give us that data. But to me, privacy is the biggest thing, and it's only going to get worse. Not worse, sorry. That means it's bad. It's only going to get thicker, more important. I don't know an adjective for that. Yeah, it's going to be more perverse throughout. Okay, whatever. But it's, yeah. So does that answer? Sorry, thanks. This is very discombobulated. I didn't get much sleep last night or this whole week. Any other questions on behavioral tracking? Yeah. Yeah.
You have what, 10 conversion events?
Mm-hmm.
And then imagine sending personalized emails for each one to understand how the user reacted and which one's the best via email to bring them back onto the site.
Yep.
That can get pretty deep. So did you find a tool to help track all this tests?
So the question is there a way to track all the tests with all the additional events leading up to that conversion? And if you're testing multiple things at multiple events, is that right?
Yeah. Like your example was, hey, you came to this Apple email, now check out the code. But what if you're testing that versus, hey, add this to your collection?
Okay.
See which conversion.
Yeah. So for the video people watching, it is if you got to the detail view but didn't get to the code view, is the code view better than actually having them collect that email? So testing different features within those events that you're tracking. We have only gotten to the code view, and actually we're launching collect view probably within the next week. And Vero allows us to branch our emails based on those events. So we'll get to a point where it says send code view or send collect view, and then see which one converts at a higher rate. The conversion to us is less important. It's going to be important for maybe some commerce companies, but to us it's retention. So which one is bringing people back more often or keeping them to come back to the site, 2x, 3x, 9x more than the other cohorts that we're watching. All right, cool. You say, get off the stage, you bum. So I will.